wanted to talk to you about writing collaboratively, and whether it be with one just you and another person, or you and a group of people. So just in general, starting off with it, what is your experience of writing collaboratively?
So I've been writing collaboratively for probably over 3 years now, largely with the same group of folk. We wrote, we all went down to Unislam several years ago, and as a team wrote one poem for the Unislam competition that we then didn't perform at the Unislam competition. But following that, we decided that we really enjoyed writing collaboratively. We thought it was something we didn't see a lot of in the scene, at least where we were from. And so we decided we wanted to write something together. And the Fringe was about 6 months away, so we decided to apply and write a show in 6 months, which was just a great idea. And that show was a matter of time. When we finished that, we thought, right, now would be a great time to write another show in the next year for the next Fringe. So we wrote the 900 Club. And in that time, we decided that this was something we wanted to kind of continue doing and see what we can make of it. That group became In the Works, which is our spoken word theatre company, where we kind of specialise in both narrative writing and collaborative writing. Since then, I've written Makeshift with BB June and Folklore, which is a series of queer horror radio plays that we collaborated with Tin Can Audio on. And yeah, I think that's all of the big collaborative projects we've done. But I guess that's what we've been doing for the last while. Yeah.
So you touched on it a little bit there, the whole fact of like not many people doing it, but just to focus in on it then, why are you still doing collaborative stuff? What about it attracts you to writing collaborative projects and stuff like that?
So there's a few things that I really love about writing collaboratively, especially with a good group. I would say one of the really basic ones is that it pushes you to write. If you are struggling to write, having someone there, not even pressuring you, but just with that background pressure of, oh, they're expecting something of me, so I need to produce some work, will really push you to get out of any sort of kind of writer's block or creative block you have. Secondly, editing. Getting in a group where you all feel comfortable editing your work will only make you better. And for us, that's been like essential to our growth as poets, is working together, becoming very comfortable in editing each other's work and giving feedback and getting good at that. Alongside those kind of practical concerns, I would say there's just something amazing about what you can do with multiple minds and multiple people on stage. When we wrote 900 Club, we all created individual characters. When we first created those characters, we each wrote a poem in their voice. And that gave us these interesting dynamics for what were two-dimensional characters before that. And it really bled into the show and how we wrote those characters going forward. Even though those poems never did anything with them, they were just purely an exercise. And I don't think you can achieve that sort of diversity of voice with just one person writing a thing. Same is on stage. I have a very particular performance style. I am loud and shouty and fun and fast. And those are the things that I do well. I will never be able to perform in the same way that, for instance, Ellen Renton, who I work with, does. And her performance style is amazing. Same with Shannon O'Neill, same with B. June. These people, we all had such different performance styles that it complemented. We learned how to make them complement each other and how to have them and how to have those influence the arcs that we were putting together and the stories we were telling. And just these are all things you cannot do with solo performances, solo writing, and yeah. Also, creating is often quite lonely, and just having a group of people that you meet up with regularly for a particular reason just means that you have a social aspect of that too, which is very nice. And yeah, there's just, I can't recommend it enough for other people to go out and do it. Those are just a few of the many reasons that I've loved doing it over the past few years.
Well, you're already kind of touching on the questions I want to ask before we even get to them, which is wonderful. But nevertheless, I'm still going to focus in on them. You talk about your writing and performing style. How is it bringing what you do as a solo act? How is it bringing that into a group aspect? Do you have to bring yourself down to make it work together, or is it staying you, or is there like somewhere in between? Does it depend on the project? How is it mixing you as Ross, then bringing Ross into the collective and the group?
I think we are very careful not to kind of stymie each other and be like, oh, this piece requires you to be someone different on stage, because that is just not going to be productive for anyone, and you're not going to get the best material out of everyone. So there is always compromise, but a lot of that compromise is based on, here are the things that we are good at, and here's our kind of comfort zones, and you can push out of those a little bit, but you don't want to ask someone like me to be the incredibly quiet, like, I don't know, menacing villain of a piece. That's just not going to work. I'm not going to be able to do that as well as I could do another character or another piece on stage. And in that way, like, for instance, none of us prior to our shows really wrote comedy. And I have become comic relief in a lot of the work that we do, because my performance style is very well suited for that, I guess. And the characters that I played have been very well suited for that, and that's been a lot of fun. So that's pushed me out of my comfort zone in the writing sense, but fitted really well in my performances.
Well, then, on the kind of writing sense of it, then, there are these common, at least, assumptions with writing collaboratively, whether it be long form or short form, that idea of either, and like none of these are better or worse than the other, that you might have sometimes where one person writes the whole thing specifically for other people to take part. So it is, we're writing this specific, each bring your own parts to it and doing it like that, or here's an existing poem I have, can I use the existing poem with yours and see if they work together? So like, there's obviously different ways to make a collaborative piece. What do you feel is the best way of doing it for you, or is it a case by case thing?
Oh, the best. I think that's, yeah, I think it might be a case by case, because all of those things that you've just mentioned, I think we have done all of them at some point. There is a point in a matter of time, definitely, where we use one of Ellen's poems that she had already written, because it was, a lot of the ideas overlapped. So we just had that poem in there and it made a lot of sense and it worked. We had a little bit of adaptation, but it was largely the same poem. There have been poems, especially, and this is often the case with big collaborative pieces, often the last poem is very difficult to write collaboratively. And this has been the case where one person has gone away and written a decent chunk of the last poem with other people's voices in mind, and then everyone comes together and workshops it and make sure it's exactly what we need, because fitting in all the themes of a long show is very difficult, and you kind of have to do that at the end. But for the vast majority of what we've written, it has been, I have written a stanza and you link up at the end of that. If you want a different lead in, we can talk about that. If you need something else to come off of, or you need me to hit more points before it gets to you, let's do that. But the ability to do that comes a lot in the planning stages. It comes from right, where are we going in this poem? It needs to get from A to B. It needs to cover all these points in between. And who's best to cover those points? Whose characters, whose voice is best saying these things? And so it comes from a lot of planning, but I would say that definitely, while there's a mix of things, my personal favorite is right, I've written my bit, you go write your bit, and then pass it on to the next person, and we'll all kind of, we'll all write our own bits, because that way you get all those different voices. Yeah.
We'll go on the different voices side of it. Have there ever been times, and if there have, how does it feel like either you reading someone else's writing or someone else reading your own writing? Like, obviously that's I know you guys obviously have a lot of the theatre aspects of in the works as well, and that side of things, so it's more commonplace then, but especially doing it in a poetry sense, when poetry is so much seen as, this is my writing about my story and my personal thing. How is it potentially about reading someone else's writing and almost having to say, this is now about me, even though you know it's not?
Okay, that's interesting. So I would say that in those times where we are reading someone else's writing, it is less. It has been less about us. It's been less about the person reading it. It has been more story based, or it's been more narrative based, and it's um, yeah. I can't think of a time where someone else has written something for me to say that is supposed to be a reflection of myself. And that, I think that has a lot to do with the fact that when we are writing collaboratively, largely we're writing theatre. We are writing, we're writing fiction. And while our characters often are touch on our own personalities or are mirrors to our own personalities or draw from our own experiences, they are fictional. And so we are less, we're less precious about what they do. Although there have definitely been times where one person will write for another person's character and say, well, I really need you to say something like this. Could you say this exact thing? The other person saying, no, because they're like, I know my character better, or this is an experience that means a lot to me that we get right, and I don't want to say this specific thing. I want to say something more nuanced or something that's more reflective of my experience because I think it's really important. But I think, yeah, that's all about just being careful and understanding that you are working with other people and that they are putting a lot of themselves into what they are doing. But I think that does lead to better results overall if you're willing to say to people, no, I don't want to say this because it doesn't make sense for what we're doing here, or I want it to be better than the thing that you've written. And again, that's just being comfortable editing each other's work again.
Well, then that kind of feeds nicely into the whole idea of teamwork. And obviously, like, it sounds like you guys have managed to figure out teamwork to work well for you guys and keep the collective going and keep your writing to the best it can be. But obviously, I would imagine at least there have been some level of challenges or things to always keep in mind. So whilst a lot of the collaborative stuff sounds good and sounds like it's working for you, what are the things you've had to almost be wary of when being collaborative, and like what are kind of advice or things to keep an eye on just in terms of working collaboratively to make it work well?
I would say while I can present the image that everything's really fun and great and enjoyable and social. If you are working on something at a professional level, and these things impact your livelihood, if they impact your work, things can get very heated very quickly, and you have to have very strong relationships, either personal or professional, that can withstand very frank discussions. And yeah, I think we have all at different times had those kind of discussions between us where it's like, ooh, this is a bit, people are getting, tempers are getting raised, or people are struggling to communicate at this time, and it just has to be a case of you need to have very strong relationships, and you need to have a lot of trust between each other in order for that to maintain a relationship, because sometimes that's not possible if things don't go well, and if people aren't on the same wavelength about what they're trying to achieve, which sucks, but it's that can happen in, I guess, any situation, and I don't think poetry is particularly bad for it, but it can feel a bit more personal when you've worked very closely with someone and things don't work out.
Well, thankfully, it does seem like things have, for the most part, worked out with all you guys, and you guys are doing some incredible stuff. So to kind of wrap up this kind of section, almost a two-part question. Firstly, what are you guys working on at the moment collaboratively? Are there any projects you're really looking forward to right now? And B, other than what you're currently working on, is there anything you think, I would love to try and do that in the future?
Right now, we've just released Makeshift on YouTube. That was done with that was the show that BB and I toured around the UK and Ireland last year. It is now a fully fledged audio drama with sound design from Tin Can Audio, who are an awesome sound production studio in Glasgow. That's on YouTube. If you search Makeshift in the Works, we have released at the beginning of this year folklore, queer horror radio plays. Those are available on Tin Can's label as well. That's myself, BB June, and Sid Briscoe. Right now, we were supposed to be touring with Insight, which is Ellen Renton's debut solo show, although still collaborative, as BB June is the creative producer on that and has worked with Ellen from, I think, the conception of the show to getting it on stage and getting it touring around Scotland. Hopefully, fingers crossed, that will be touring in Scotland in 2021, but who knows at this point. Alongside that, we want to do more folklore, so hopefully we will we'll be doing more audio drama work in the coming year. We'll have a new series of wonderful horror coming out. That's all written as poetry as well. On top of that, we should have some fun collaborative stuff going on our social medias very soon. But that hasn't taken shape quite yet, but probably will by the time this comes out. So check us out on social media, and there might be something there. And things we want to do in the future: work with different people, work with more people, bring people in, help them adapt to collaborative writing if they haven't done it in the past. We have 2 early career poets that we are working with at the moment to try and get them on tour when they can tour and get them doing other stuff, if not touring during this time. And I want to be doing more audio drama stuff in general. I want to take more spoken word theatre shows and bring them into audio format, because Makeshift, it kind of, when it dawned on me that it would work perfectly, and then it did, and it did in such a short period of time. I'd want to do that more and to do with more people and help more people do that. So hopefully you'll see a bit more of that in the coming year or so.